Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. Thanks for watching the show. I'm your host, Coach Tripp, along with my buddy and former teammate at Alabama and Tampa Bay, Curt Jarvis. Curt, thanks for joining the show today, buddy.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, man. I've been excited about this.
My gosh, it's been a while. I guess the last time we seen each other in a while when we went to Coach Al Miller's reunion. We had a ball there. It was great to see everybody. We got another reunion coming up with Coach Lewis Campbell May 31st for his DBs.
Oh, really? Where's that going to be? Where's that going?
Just south of Tuscaloosa. I'll give you information. But yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for being on the show, folks. Here on Coach's Corner, we try to inspire and educate the mind to think, the heart to feel, and the body to act. Brought to you by Hill Kelly Dodge, a title sponsor for Coach's Corner for many years. All right, let's start from the beginning, Curt. I believe the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Talk about your mom and your dad and your siblings growing up.
Oh, well, my mom and dad, let's see, my dad was a pretty good athlete. They grew up really poor. He never used indoor restroom until he got to like high school.
Wow.
And so he was a really good athlete, but he said at the time, and Alabama was kind of looking at him. He went to Montevallo High School. And at the time, I think Alabama was kind of looking at him. He was 185 pounds and was probably the biggest guy they were looking at back in the late 50s, early 60s. And
right.
Anyway, and then my mother, you talk about two opposites. My father was from out in the country, a little town called Pea Ridge. My mother went to the University of Montevallo, which is 6 miles from Pea Ridge. My mother was from a very educated family of musicians. We have professors in the family on her side. Then you got my dad's side, which we got a bunch of outlaws, moonshiners, and all that. But anyway, they met there, fell in love, and had myself and then my sister. I have a sister named Claire who's probably a way better athlete than me. She's 4 years younger. Uh-huh.
Wow. So it was you and your sister and your dad who were like opposites growing up. I mean, is that how I don't know. Is that how you and Shu got to be roommates? Like, like the Odd Couple, or no, even worse than that, Terry Sanders and Rocky Colburn. That's the Odd Couple.
Yeah. Well, okay. Mike and I were as odd couple as you can get. Now, I tell the story. My roommate, who was my best friend growing up from Gardendale, he came to Alabama with me. His name was Mike Burkett. We called him Bucket. You remember him?
Yeah.
And Bucket and I were great friends, but we couldn't live together. It was so after the first 4 months, he was driving me back crap crazy. And I'm sure I was driving him crazy as well. And so I had a roommate that probably wasn't doing the things he needed to be doing. And so I went to Jack Rutledge. I think, it was Jack Rutledge was the dorm director. I said, move. And he said, well, Shula wants another roommate. And this was right after our first semester as freshmen. Well, when Mike and I first met, going back a little bit, he didn't like me and I didn't like him. He thought I was some redneck from Alabama, which I am. I thought Ford Rich is Miami, which he is. Didn't like each other at all. I mean, we kind of tolerated each other. And when Jack told me, he said, well, Shula needs a roommate. And I was like, are you kidding me? Do you not have anybody else I can room with? And so anyway, so we had to do that. So in between the fall and the spring semester of our freshman year, I guess 1983, 84, I moved into Mike's room. And when I moved in, I didn't even unpack anything because I'm like, this is temporary. We just tolerate each other. So anyway, so I moved in, left everything in boxes because I was only going to be there, 3 or 4 weeks till I found somebody else. We ended up living together for 6 years, became probably one of my best friends in the world. And
my God, holy cow.
He makes his bed every morning, and I tell everybody I bring my sheets home twice a year, whether they needed washing or not.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Mike, is it true Mike went to mass every single day that you know?
Certainly strong in his faith. And Mike was a guy, and I tell everybody, if my son grows up to be like him, I will be happy because Mike,
Yep.
who he is, he doesn't hide his faith. He doesn't hide who he is. And there were
Right.
times when we were out, you know, doing what college people do, and he would say, "Hey, we don't need. That's not right." And I was sitting there going,
Yep.
"Hey, come on, nobody's going
Yep.
to know." And he was
Yep.
like, "It doesn't matter." He said, "We'll know." And so the good Lord was watching after me because he put me with Mike, and that kept me out of a lot of trouble because I was a little bit
Yep.
different guy than I am now. So
Yeah, Mike is a great guy, man. I love Shoe to this day. Shoe boat. You know what I miss? Going and playing golf every day in the off season with the Bucs, with him and me and Testaverde, man, going out and playing golf every day.
yeah, Mike's a
Gosh,
class. One of my
we had a ball. All right, since we're on the subject, I got so many other questions. Let's try to attack these. Your recruiting experience at Bama.
It was great. The whole thing about, and I tell this story, so I want your listeners, before they start turning off and cussing me, the whole story, and then they'll understand what happened. So when I started getting recruited, I guess the first one, the contact I had was either Coach Dye or Coach Bryant my sophomore year. And just to show you how Coach Bryant was, we were playing Hueytown at Hueytown, and I was a sophomore. And Coach Bryant was there to watch Jeff Parks, who was a tight end at Auburn. And so he's noticed me, and Jeff was my teammate. And so it would eventually end up at Auburn. But anyway, so as he was watching Jeff Parks play, he noticed me. And so he asked somebody, who is that number 79 out there? And they said, well, that's Curt Jarvis. And they said, are his parents? And they said, yes. And he said, I'd like to talk with them. So he's sitting up in the stands. So my dad used to tell the story. He said, he's standing up there in the stands. And he said, here comes some guy walking up to him and said, you Mr. Jarvis? And he said, yeah. They go, would you come with me? Coach Bryant wants to see you. He thought it was a joke. And he's like, yeah, right. He goes, no, I'm serious. Coach Bryant's at the other end of the stadium to talk to you. So he went along with it, goes down there, and there it is. Coach Bryant sitting there. He just kind of slipped in, and nobody really know. I mean, some noticed, but he didn't make a big hoopla about it. So anyway, Coach Bryant introduced himself, said, Mr. Jarvis, I'm Paul Bryant, and said, I want to know, can I have permission to recruit your son? And my dad's like, sure, yeah, it can. I'd love that. And so anyway, they had a little conversation, back and forth. So that's the first indication that I got that, hey, maybe I have a chance to go to the next level. And then Coach Dye came in. But so to tell my story of the recruiting, Coach Bryant loved Coach Bryant. He was a man's man. He was a living John Wayne. If you watch any Western movie with John Wayne, that's what Coach Bryant was. He was that person. He just had an aura about him.
Right.
And went to his house a couple of times. He took me rabbit hunting. He came to visit, but I noticed and this was probably my junior year, I noticed that his health wasn't very good.
Right.
And we had, at my house, had about 5-6 steps leading up to go into the house. And he could barely get up those steps. And he would sit and talk with us and have dinner. And I tell everybody, I go, not only did I not know if he was going to be there my whole 4 years, I didn't know if he was going to make it through dinner. And come to find out, he had a couple of strokes. But back then, the media kind of protected you, unlike now.
Right.
So in that, I remember talking with my dad about it, and I'm like, I would love to play for Coach Bryant. It would be a great honor. I just don't know how long he's going to be there. So, and Auburn was doing a really good job of recruiting me. I loved Coach Dye, Bobby Wallace, Wayne Hall. Those guys were just tip top, great people. And I committed to Auburn my junior year. And so that's where I was going. And then Coach Bryant retired, and Perkins told me this story when Coach Bryant retired, and supposedly Coach Perkins knew a year in advance that he was going to retire. So Coach Perkins comes in and does his speech like they always do, and the media thing of him being hired. And he said he had a staff meeting right after that. And he said, who are the two players that we do not have that we need on this team? And the coaches said Curt Jarvis and Cornelius Bennett. They said they're both going to Auburn. And so that press conference, within 3 hours of him doing that press conference, he was at my house. Now, I always like to say he stopped at Cornelius's house because it was on the way, but he stopped. But we all know he stopped at Cornelius. Cornelius is probably my favorite athlete. And so he left right after the press conference, went to Cornelius's house, and then left there and came to my house in Gardendale. And he was there within 3 hours of doing that. And he basically told Cornelius and I the same thing. He goes, look, I know you're going to Auburn, got that. He goes, just give me a chance. Let me show you what we've got going on here, and let's do what we're supposed to do. I mean, as far as recruiting you, I know y'all committed, but let us come visit. And so we were like, yeah, we'll do that. And then I had a dilemma because I had committed, and my dad was really big on keeping your commitments. And so without getting into all the details, it wasn't anything having people think, oh, it was money. No, everything was strictly legal. But there was something that Coach Dye was going to do for another player to bring him on the team and give a scholarship to. Right. And close to me, well, when it got about 3 days before signing date, and I'm still committed to Auburn, Coach Dye calls me and says, hey, we can't do what we said for that guy, but we're going to let him come and be a walk-on, preferred walk-on. Mm-hmm. And, okay. So we hung up the phone. I went down to my dad, and I said, hey, here's what Coach Dye just told me. And Coach Dye was just being honest. And like I said, I love Coach Dye. Yeah. And my dad said, because he wasn't going to let me change my commitment. He goes, you committed to Coach Dye at his house. You got to keep that commitment, keep your word. And so, but when I told him what had happened, he goes, okay, he just changed the deal on you. Do you want to go to Alabama or do you want to go to Auburn? And I said, what do you think I should do? My dad said, I can't tell you that. Right. And I said, really, I like Coach Perkins, because by then I'd gotten to know him pretty well. Right. I said, let me, so I'm going to go to Alabama. And so he said, okay. So I called Coach Perkins, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, like in February, when they're on the Sunday night. So I had Coach, before cell phones to show our age. So I called Coach Perkins' house. I had his home number there. And Miss Perkins answered. And I said, is Coach in? She goes, no, he's at the office. I'll have him call you as soon as he gets in. And so probably about 30 minutes later, Coach Perkins called and said, Curt, you know how he was. Curt, it's Coach. I said, good. I said, will you still offer me a scholarship if I decide to come to Alabama? Because I didn't know if they just didn't want me anymore or anything like that. And he said, absolutely. And I said, well, tomorrow morning, it was on a Monday, and we had to sign on Wednesday. And so that morning I called then I called Coach Dye, the hardest call I've ever had to make in my life to this day. And I just turned 60 years old. The two hardest things I've ever had to do was, number one, call Coach Dye and tell him I wasn't coming to Auburn. And the other one was telling Bobby Wallace, who was, I think he was a receiver coach, secondary coach at Auburn at the time. Bobby Wallace and I had gotten really close. And when I had to tell Bobby Wallace that I wasn't coming to Auburn, that broke my heart to do it because I did not want to disappoint him.
Right.
Told them I am not coming. I'm going to Alabama. And then the next morning I made my announcement. And by the way, on that phone conversation I was having with Perkins, when I told him, hey, I'm going to announce my commitment in the morning at 8:00. And he said, well, that's great news. He goes, I got another bit of good news for you, too. I was like, what's that? He goes, Cornelius just changed his commitment as well. And
wow.
Yes. And so I went, really? Because Cornelius and I, we'd talked some because we were getting recruited together. Cornelius, Kerry. It was always the same cast of characters whenever we'd go visit schools. It was me, Cornelius, Kerry, Dude. Shula was at a couple of schools and I went, and it was just that same group of people. And so I announced it that next Monday morning, and that's how I got to Alabama. So.
What a class that was, man. It was unbelievable. I was right in the middle of the transition. But Coach Bryant, that's how he discovered Rocky Colburn down here at Tate High School in Pensacola. He was looking at somebody else, and he noticed Rocky on film. All right, let's reflect on some of the best moments at where were some of your favorite moments at Bama? Maybe a game or a play or something, because we forget all the games and all the plays, as the years go on. But there's always moments that stick out.
Yeah, and I always tell everybody. I just said this a while ago to a friend of mine who's helping me build the deck. Another friend of mine. I said my memory's good, but it's just not very long. So go with games and stuff like that. I can remember all that. I tell you what means the most to me. Looking back, were the people that choosing the school that I chose, Alabama, brought into my life. And you've mentioned a couple already. And the first one, by far, that stands out above anything else that I wish I could be like him every day and that made an impact on me was Al Miller.
Yeah.
He was a man. He was fair. He was rough on us, but he loved on us too. And when we went to that reunion for Al Miller, I just, even though Al Miller's gotten, he's aging like we all are, he's still that man's man that was a huge influence on me. Now, it takes later in life because I was still wild as a buck, but I had that, of course, my dad was a great example for me. But other than my dad, Al Miller, you had Kent Johnston, the guys that came into my life, and quite frankly, changed my life. And, Kent Johnston brought me to his house one day. I went out when I was playing at Tampa and got into a little bit of trouble acting like a fool. And got into a fight or something at a bar. And anyway, and this was pre, me changing. And he just we came in, how Coach Johnson, and he's like, man, how you doing? I said, he goes, well, I've been watching you. And he said, do you have a Bible? And I said, no. So I don't think I own one. I might have owned one. I said I haven't. So he reached back or behind him. He had some bookcases. He had a box Bible in it. And this was 1988 when this house was at Tampa. And he gave me that Bible. And to this day, I still have that same Bible. Now, I didn't crack it open and read it when I should have. But later in life, that changed my life to get out of wild. I mean, because I was still acting like a rock star long after.
Right.
But that stuck with me. And, just like Al Miller did, meeting Mike was something that I learned, it was a great example for me of, hey, this is a great guy.
I understand, Curt, man. When I came from Syracuse, I was doing things I wasn't supposed to. And I needed to get out of Dodge. When I came to Alabama, I had so many good influences on me, man. It was amazing.
Yes.
from Dana, my first wife, to, all those guys, Paulette Carruth. I mean, we talk about Cornelius Bennett, John Hand, talking about Big John.
Yeah, and you mentioned what was the name? Rocky Colburn.
Rocky Colburn, yeah, Rocky Colburn was a great example. A hard, tough guy, man. One of the toughest guys I ever met, actually, ever played with.
The toughest guy that if things were going down and I needed an foxhole and we're fighting it out, I would want Rocky Colburn in that fight. Because
I would too, man. I would too. Him and Al Miller. Because Mike White had a picture of Al Miller in his Navy SEAL training that got him through to be a Navy SEAL.
Mike White was another one that I looked up to. He's a couple years older than me, but just the thing Mike White did, and the things he went through, and just certainly risking his life every day to serve this country. And I'm still friends with him, talk to him a lot.
Yeah.
He's just, I respect that guy because being
me too.
That's tip top in my book above anything that I've ever even attempted or accomplished. All the mentioned, they were guys that were great influences on me. And even though I may not have taken hold then, it was kind of just planted a seed to where as I got older and thought, hey, man, you need to calm down. Those were the guys that emulate and do what you're supposed to be doing. And, of course, having kids changes you. And, of course, I would love to be the hero to my children, and they just look at me like all the stuff I've done. They couldn't care less what I've done. I'm just dad.
Folks, we're talking with Curt Jarvis, defensive tackle, nose guard at Alabama, 5 years with the Bucs, Tampa Bay Bucs, and then you hurt your neck. 4 years. We played together in 87. Me, you, and Shu played in 87. And then you played 4 years and hurt your neck. Talk about your injury.
Well, when I had gotten to Alabama, and even in high school, again, we'll go back to my dad. The one thing that my dad was very staunch on was we don't miss practice.
Right.
Practice. So from Little League up until my junior year at Alabama, I don't think I'd ever missed a game. And certainly never. I remember one time having the flu in high school, playing Mortimer Jordan. I had the flu. I went to practice. I sat down on the other end of the field just because I had to be there. And when we were playing the game, they had to hit me with an IV at halftime because I was, it was freezing cold that night and I had the shivers. I was just dehydrated. So they hit me with an IV. So anyway, going on that, I didn't miss practice. Well, my junior year, all of a sudden I started getting stingers in my arm. And so I missed the game. First game killed me to miss that game. It was the first one. But it slowly started, every year it seemed like I got one or two more stingers than I did the previous year. Went to Tampa, was very fortunate to be in this position they needed me, got to play, had Mike Dubose, who is probably one of the greatest defensive minds there is.
Yeah, we're going to talk about coaches in a second, Curt.
And so I got a chance to play and start and do all that. But I noticed my neck was my weak link. And so finally, October 28th, 1990, we were playing Diego out there. And I tackled Marion Butts. And he got up and I didn't. But I did make the tackle. So Chris Smith, when I hit Marion Butts, I'm laying on my back and couldn't get up. And so Chris, our trainer, he comes running out there. He was our trainer at Alabama and Tampa.
Yep.
He came running out there and said, hey, what's wrong? And I said, I got two. He said, is it a stinger? And I said, yes, in both arms. And then I said, get that SOB off of me. But I didn't use the term. And when I said that, Chris started freaking out. Hurt, slow you down. da 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 da. And I'm going, what's wrong? And he goes, there's nobody on you. I felt like there was somebody laying across my lower half of my body. I couldn't move. And so he goes, and I'll never forget this. He goes, we think you broke your neck. And when he said that, it's like, you remember the Charlie Brown movies where the parents were always, wah, 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 wah. Started hearing Chris and the doctors talking to me. I was just hearing the wah, wah, wah. Because I'm looking at the clouds going, I'm paralyzed.
Wow.
And so then you start making promises to God that you can't keep.
Right.
And then to the hospital, ended up getting feeling back in my legs. But I had bruised my spinal cord. And the way Dr. Hellman, our neurosurgeon, who, the brilliant people, he dumbed it down for me. And he said, basically, he goes, when you bruised your spinal cord, he goes, your legs were not sending the message to your brain. Yeah. It was like off, and he said there was a little bit of swelling. And he said, depending on how bad the swelling is how much damage you may have. Well, anyway, got my feeling back, didn't have a problem, but I couldn't play anymore. And so brought me in the office. They did a bunch of tests on me and things like that. And then Perkins brought me into his office probably about 2 or 3 weeks later and said, Curt, he goes, you're going to have to retire. And I go, I'm not retiring. And he goes, yeah, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, I'll go to another team. He said, no team's going to pick you up. He said, you can't play. He said, and Dr. Melman was in there. And Dr. Melman said, you are one hit away from being a paraplegic. He said, I can't fix your neck back the way God made it. And he said, you're just a walking disaster right now. He said, it may be 2 years, it may be the next hit. He said, but you can't play with that neck anymore. And so of course I was like, y'all can't tell me what to do. Y'all don't know. I'm getting a second opinion. Because I loved the game of football. I hated practice. Hated practice every day for 21 years that I played. Never liked practice, but I loved Friday nights, Saturday nights, and Sundays. Right. And so after I calmed down, fortunately, good Lord, I healed up fine. There was no issues. But the next year after I retired, just to show you how fortunate I am, the next year after I retired in 1991, I think it was, Mike Utley, he was an offensive guard for Detroit Lions. He had the exact same injury I did, and he's still in a wheelchair.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a lesson. Blessed, grace. Yeah, that was a lesson learned, man. The blessing in disguise. You can't see the blessings in disguise because that's why they're called disguisers so good. But all right, let's talk about some coaches. Sylvester Croom.
One of the men that I think of all the time. I love his deep voice, and but he was again. These were great men that were on that staff. Sylvester Croom is one of them, and I always wanted to play for him in some fashion because I thought he was a great coach and loved to be around him. And the funniest thing about him, so he came down to Tampa with us as running backs coach, stayed, then went to Detroit Lions. Right. Well, they drafted Barry Sanders. And so Barry Sanders was a rookie. So we go up to, how it was before a game. You go out on the field and talk with everybody And so I see Coach Croom and hug his neck. And I'd see him. I'm like, dang, Coach. I go, you got Barry Sanders. And I'm like, hey, how do you coach them? And he goes, Curt, I'll be honest with you. He said, my main job, don't screw him up. He said,
Curt, all right, you do that good, man. You did a good impression of Croom.
Yeah. And so I got to laugh, but every time I think about Barry Sanders, I remember Coach Croom saying, "Don't screw him up." It's all my main job. So anyway,
what a great man he was. What a great. Oh gosh, we played with so many. Derek Thomas, man, with Cornelius Bennett. I interviewed Cornelius Bennett a few months ago, and I asked him, Hey, Biscuit, what's the coldest game you ever played at? And I thought he would tell me a game from the Buffalo Bills, right? They get that lake effect weather. He said no, it was the 1983 BC game up there. Curt, was that the cold? That was a cold, and I played in snow, right, from high school in Canada. But man, that was the worst, coldest game I've ever been.
That was my coldest game until Tampa Bay played New England Patriots in the same field that we Boston
Foxborough Stadium. Yeah, Foxborough.
-25 below wind chill. Mike, who was Coach Perkins' son, was the video guy. He was in the end zone. He got hypothermia up there video. During time, there was one section in Foxborough where the sun was shining. And during not halftime, but during the TV timeout, the Patriots and us, we'd go stand in that sun, huddled up amongst one another. And then when they'd break, right before the commercial come back, we'd get out of the sun. Those two games were probably the coldest games that I've ever been a part of. As a matter of fact, to tell you how cold the Tampa Bay Patriots game was, we went in at halftime. And when we came back out, I didn't wear a mouthpiece. I chewed gum, and because I didn't like mouthpieces. And so Buster was a trainer we had, and before the first half and before the second half, he would always come and bring me 2 pieces of gum I could chew on. Well, when he opened that gum up, it just disintegrated into dust. And I went to water, and the water had frozen in those Gatorade cups.
That was brutal. I remember yelling at the defense, man, during TV timeouts in that BC game because they just wanted everybody wanted to huddle up and get warm. Remember, that's during TV timeouts. Oh my gosh.
Coldest games, and I can't. One was colder, but they were both very cold. Cornelius is right.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, 18 months later, after your neck injury, you got your pilot license. How and why did you become a pilot?
Well, okay. Growing up, I had in my room, I didn't have football pictures up in there. I had pictures of, and of course I had the Farrah Fawcett and the red bathing suit.
Right.
But right around Farrah Fawcett in her poster, I had all these airplanes, because I grew up wanting to be a fighter pilot.
Wow.
And that was my goal. My dad was in the Air Force. He didn't fly, but he was in the Air Force and just fell in love with airplanes. And I tell everybody, football just got in the way of it. So when I finally got to Tampa and I could afford it, I started taking flying lessons. And so actually while I was playing, I had gotten several ratings. I'd gotten, before I retired from Tampa, during the off season, I'd just go get rating after rating after rating. And so by the time I retired from Tampa, I had what's called an ATP. I kind of describe it as your doctorate of aviation. The ATP is air transport pilot. You're not a doctor of aviation, but that's kind of what I describe it as so people understand it. So when I retired, I was ready to go fly. The only problem was I had a bunch of licenses and I had a bunch of ratings, but I didn't have the experience. I mean, I knew just to kill something. And so, and then Gulf War, and nobody was hiring pilots. Matter of fact, they were furloughing pilots. So I'm sitting there with all these ratings, and I'm just trying to go somewhere to get some experience. So my goal in life, if when I was 12 years old or whatever, if you had asked me, I said, I want to go in the military, I want to fly fighter pilots, and then I want to go fly for Delta Airlines. That was my goal. And so like I said, football kind of got in the way of some of it. I tried to join the military. I retired, but at that time they didn't need pilots, so you had to be in flight school before you were 26 and a half. And I was about to be 7. And
Oh.
I'd saved my money, what little we made back then. And
Right.
so just took a couple years off, went and fished. I love to bass fish. I'm not as good as these, all these guys, Gerald, some of those guys, but I enjoy it. And so I fished some of those tournaments, just enjoying life. And I knew I was never going to beat those guys, but I enjoyed doing it. And so then I went back and coached 2 years because I thought, can't get a job flying. And let me go be a graduate assistant. So I called Coach Dubose, and Coach Stallings was there at the time, and Stallings hired me. And actually, the other graduate assistant was Dabo Sweeney.
Wow.
So I coached 2 years. I loved working with the guys. There's nothing more gratifying than taking a kid that's having problems and you teach him something and you see it progress on the field. And you being a coach,
purpose. Yeah, that's your purpose. Yeah.
Ones that I loved helping more than anything were the ones that didn't have as much talent as some of these other guys, but you taught something, and just to see their face when all of a sudden they win one, and help that guy get in that position to win that battle. And
no better feeling than that. Yeah.
Nothing's more gratifying than that. But what I hated was staying at the office 18 hours a day.
Yes.
Insane. And
little money.
I was making $325 a month.
Yeah.
Paying for my housing. And, and Dabo just loved it. I mean, he would, he was there constantly, just all. And I go, I don't have the fire once I come off this field to go do the things that Saban and all the great ones do. I still, when we'd do an away game, I would still go up to the cockpit, talk to those pilots. We use Delta. And I just talked to him. And I remember just looking at that airplane going, I wonder if I could fly one of these things one day. And it just my passion. So anyway, at the end of my 2 years of being a graduate assistant, I packed up my bags. I got a job flying as a retainer pilot for Public Supermarket for $350 a month. But that got me turbine time, and it got me some experience and interviewed got to Delta. So.
Yes, 20 years with Delta, 20 some years, man. You hit your goal, your life goal, man. It's a beautiful thing. Football. What did football teach you though to be as a pilot? Obviously, like with Coach Brian and Coach Perkins, promptness was something like it was drilled into me, man. I made sure that my kids knew that, to be early is to be on time is to be late, and to be late is to be forgotten. Don't let me forget you, because I will. So, promptness is one of the disciplines that I learned. What other characteristics did football help you as to be a pilot?
Well, there were two things. I kind of had to unlearn one thing. And the one thing I had to unlearn from playing football is when your back gets against the wall, you got to get aggressive. You got to get in, and you've got to, go all out into battle. Now, what I learned was, as I got into aviation, is you've got to do the absolute different when you have a problem. That's when you calm down. You sit. You kind of, I tell everybody, sit back, I don't smoke, but they say, sit back, take a smoke. Let's see what the problem is. And whatever the problem is, don't make it worse by having a spring in your butt, jump and start flipping switches. So the aggression that I had, but what it did teach me is you've got to be focused on your goal. And when I left Tampa, even though I had to go do some other things and find out where my way was, I always had it in my mind, Delta Airlines. That's your goal. That's where you go. That is your, that is your goal. And I attacked it. When I finally said, okay, I know I don't want to fish because I'd starve to death. I know I don't want to coach because they work too much. But I attacked, okay, Delta, what do you need from me to get hired here? And so I attacked it. And I went and did everything they asked me to do, as far as ratings, as far as time, as far as, and you have to sacrifice. I sacrificed money. I sacrificed time, being, with you at home. And I was basically at anybody's beck and call that needed a pilot, just to get that time. And I didn't anything get in my way. I was focused on that. And
that's what athletes do. Yeah.
So that's what I got from football, to be focused.
Hey, Curt, is it true that you flew the Miami Dolphins one time when Coach Shula was still the coach?
No, I actually flew Coach Shula, and this is when I was with a commuter, and he had seen me walk on the airplane. And so I'm sitting up in the cockpit. Now I'm a first officer. I probably hadn't been with this commuter airline 6 months, and I'm still. So, you're a low, they do all the work, and and so I'm sitting there in this airplane, and my captain's sitting there, and we're just talking. Well, about that time I hear, "Say it ain't so," Coach Shula poked his head up in the cockpit, and he goes, "I cannot believe you're fixing to fly me." Da 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 da. Well, I'm like, "Coach, how you doing?" He goes, "Curt, how you doing?" Just hugs my neck and all this stuff. Well, I look over at the captain. His mouth is wide open. I don't know what's going on. He didn't know anything about me. And he sees Don Shula, probably the greatest NFL coach. He's coming up, hugging my neck. And so I said, "Coach, I'll talk to you when we land." He says, "Okay." And I turned and looked at the captain again, and excuse my language, he goes, "What the hell?" He goes, "Who are you?" That never happened to me, where it's probably the most famous person, one of the most famous people I know, cockpits hugging your neck and, all this stuff. So anyway, it was fun.
Well, that's just Mike's dad. That's just my roommate's dad. That's all. Mike's dad. Oh, my gosh. Curt, man, thank you so much for joining the show, man. What a blast it was. I knew it was going to be fun with you. Hey, tell everybody give an update on Mike, on how Shoeboat. I call him Shoeboat. That's my nickname for him.
Oh, good. He is now the office coordinator for South Carolina, and he's staying busy. And people always go, "Hey, you've talked to Mike lately, da-da-da." We do talk, but I know he is so busy that we talk maybe once every month during the season. Well, during the season, it just maybe. Hey,
I don't call him during the season either.
Yeah, and then he came up. We just moved up here to the lake, and he came up here and spent some time with us this past summer. And it was good to see him. And
good.
So we kind of get to see each other during the off season a little bit, but I know he's always there, and he knows he needs anything. And said if we during the season, it's usually if we do talk, it's short snippets of hey, good game, or whatever, something like that. Or he always texts me on my birthday, which is January 28th, and I never his birthday, but since we've known each other since 1983, he has always either commented happy birthday, or since we got text.
Wow.
And I've probably done it to him maybe 3 times when it just happens to. And my wife tells me, "But you can put that in your phone to remind." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I'll just remember." I never do. So anyway, so it's certainly way more effort into it than I do, but he knows I love
Yeah,
it.
oh my gosh. Well, tell him I said hi when you see him, man. Tell him Tripp is thinking about him.
I will do that.
Thanks,
Anyway,
buddy. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate you, buddy.
Having me, man. I was wondering if you was ever going to ask me. I mean, you got a punter on Chris Moore, but you didn't have me.
I know. We were teammates on 2 different teams, man, too.
I said, Chris, in 1/4.
All right, buddy.
Field,
hey,
you know.
Hey, if you're ever in Pensacola, call me, man. I ever go fishing and hunting, I'm heading your way.
Sounds good. Thank you, bud. Good talk to you.
See you, Curt. See you, buddy. Wow, Curt Jarvis, man. What a great player. Quick son of a gun. I remember doing lower gym workouts with him, and he was just as quick as I was, man, and at 245, 250 pounds. So shout out to Curt, man. Great career, great life. He's done well for himself, and I would adventure to guess nothing else. Thanks for watching the show. Have a great sports weekend, everybody. Stay tuned for these great messages from our sponsors. Without them, this just wouldn't be possible. Shout out to Gulf Breeze Insurance, Raul Ramirez. Give him a call. Bubba's 33. That's right. Alabama's going to have their watch parties. They are a sponsor too, and all the rest of them, of course. Show's brought to you by Hill Kelly Dodge. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. So long.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray, and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
75 years of service in high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We sell fun for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.
For 30 years, you have seen the orange Beck signs all over the Gulf Coast listing a property for sale or lease. Beck Partners is your trusted advisor in commercial real estate, property management, commercial and personal insurance. Senior Vice President David Valletto has been with Beck Partners since 1989. Take advantage of his wealth of knowledge by calling him today at 982-7352. 982-7352. Extensive experience in all aspects of leasing, sales, management, and site selection will make sure your expectations are exceeded. Arbitrium Consulting for all your fencing, landscaping, pressure washing, tree trimming needs. Call 850-483-0350 for your free estimates. Serving Pensacola, Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, Destin, Perdido, Gulf Shores, Foley, and the entire Gulf Coast. Arbitrium Consulting is owner-operated, fully licensed and insured. Call today, 850-483-0350, the official landscaper of Coach's Corner.